Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. I'm Tony Haggerty at A Haggerty 10. I fixed it. See that there, Ryan? There's the Y there now. So not A Haggart 10. It's Anthony Haggerty. So I'm pleased about that. Pleased I managed to spell my own name right. It's a good start on any given Friday. Friday the 14th of July, and I'm joined by Ryan McGinlay at the Ryan McGinlay. Give him his Twitter handle. How are you, sir? You well?
Yeah, I'm doing not too bad. Got the Friday feeling. Obviously, hearing some news about some transfers finally, which is good
Yes.
news. And yeah, I'm in a good mood. We've heard from Brendan Rodgers. We've heard what he has to say, and I know we'll be talking about him at length in this morning briefing. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way where the club is just now, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Excellent. Now, guys, if you enjoy the podcast daily briefings, we always urge you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website. Lots more on the website and written form, and you can help in that process support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. If you visit and click that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You can get unlimited access to everything that we put on the website. You'll enjoy all the content there. Myself, Ryan, Aidan, Duco James, Alan Morrison, Kevin McKenna columns. It's all there for you. So we say thank you to our subscribers and the regular listeners and contributors who throw their comments in the section. So we appreciate that. Now, as Ryan alluded to there, possible Celtic set to sign South Korean Joe Ryan. Now, Korea Football News has reported it's coming from a media
Sports
outlet called
Chosun.
Sports Chosun. Yep, indeed. And their headline is Celtic have agreed a deal to sign Gangwon FC winger Yang Hyun Jun. The fee agreed between the two clubs is understood to be worth around €2.5 million, and it also adds the addendum that Celtic are also set to sign Busan I Park midfielder Kwon Hyuk Kyu. Now, I hope you like the pronunciation there, Ryan. I hope I got it right.
Very, very well done.
Somebody can correct me in the comment section if I didn't, but and enlighten me. But yeah, for the purposes of this briefing, they'll be called Yang and Kwon. Makes it easier all round. But yeah, you were speaking there and saying delighted that there's some transfer news bubbling over. Other names also being mentioned. Tete being a big one as well. We were talking about that the other day, but yeah, we'll start with the Korean duo. Are you happy about that?
Yeah, I'm happy that the Yang deal in particular is getting a sort of a conclusion one way or the other. It was very much the when you heard the news update about Yang, you're like, what is he saying in the media now? But if I was a wee bit sort of downbeat on it yesterday, but if the deal is close, then I've maybe changed my mind a wee bit and just bring him in and let's see what he can do. It's obvious that Celtic have been scouting him for a while. He's a right winger. He was the young player of the season last season in the K League. He's definitely got something about him, but we'll just need to see how it goes. It looks as if it's quite far down the road, but I think the second name is one that's surprised quite a few people. We thought that maybe just one South Korean player was going to come in the form of Yang, but if you know, in January we were linked with Kwon as well. Kwon was linked with O. The two
Yes.
names were linked together. It says, according to the media report, that Celtic have followed this player for 3 years before signing him. Now that would make sense because Tilio has been scouted for years as well before making that move. That just shows long-term scouting and long-term planning is now coming into the club, which is good, which means that they've obviously made enough of an impact at their club just now that they're able to make the step up to Celtic, or Celtic believe that they can do that. So, yeah, 22-year-old defensive midfielder. I think he'd be fighting alongside Tomoki Iwata, who who was finally announced yesterday.
Yes.
Um, I believe in saying that Kwon is 6'3" as well, so he brings a bit of a physical presence too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how these materialise. They look like they're pretty far down the road, and Celtic should have two more new signings.
I like the fact that these guys are big, especially Kwon. That speaks to me, Ryan. You've heard me on here talking about lacking a bit of height and presence in the team, so I'm very happy about that. But yeah, that's what the sports chosen is chosen to write today, and we await with interest about that. But the Yang deal certainly seems to have come to a conclusion, and we also spoke about that, Ryan and I did say, in these situations, usually the player wins out. It's just a question of thrashing out deals, isn't it?
Yeah, player power is massive nowadays. I think gone are the days where clubs really control players. I think Paris Saint-Germain are finding that out very, very quickly with Kylian Mbappe. What Mbappe wants is what Mbappe gets now, it seems. But yeah, the players have all the power nowadays in football, whether you like that or not. It's just the way it is, and it looks as if again the player is going to get what he wants with regards to coming to Celtic, which I don't have a problem with if it's going to Celtic. I just hope that behaviour gets nipped in the bud if he was to move somewhere else down the line. But you just hope that because it's such a life-changing deal for him coming from South Korea to European football, he's made that point a couple of times that that's his dream. His dream's to play in Europe. We've got to look at this. A lot of these players' idols and inspirations will be Heung-min Son, who's at Tottenham Hotspur. A lot of players will be thinking, we can do the same if we get that chance and move over. All it takes is a move over to Europe, and then, the world's your oyster. So, I can see why he's maybe acted out in this way and pushed for this move. But at the same time, it's something you don't really want to see. But I guess it's part and parcel of the modern game.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. As you say, it's a life-changing move for him, but I don't think he'll get away with it at Celtic. I don't think Brendan Rodgers would put up with that kind of behaviour. So, and speaking of Brendan Rodgers, obviously the players are in Portugal just now, and lots of people getting uptight about the fact there's been no kind of signing movement and no players signed. But I'm of the opinion, Ryan, that Brendan Rodgers it's at the getting to know all about you stage with the Celtic players, and he's looking everybody in the eye because all the players are there now, and he's seeing who wants to be there. Callum McGregor wants to be there, Maeda wants to be there, Kyogo Furuhashi wants to be there. There'll be conversations had with A and others, and Brendan will be looking them straight in the eye and saying, right, you're either with me or you're without me, and he's just conducting all that kind of due diligence, as we call it. And again, I go back to it. If you're eyeing a move out elsewhere, there's the door. And I'm sure the manager will be strictly business with that and say to them, that's the fact. But I think at this moment in time, everybody's came into Portugal and he's assessing everybody. And I don't think for a minute that there's things ticking away in the background. Obviously, the Korean duo's been ticking away for a while as well. And that Celtic are working on other things. But at this moment in time, Brendan is just assessing every player that he has at his disposal, even some of the youngsters that have gone on the tour from the academy as well. And he's casting his eye around everything before he turns around and says, okay, I need cover there, or I need players there, and there. He alluded to it yesterday with Jota, or as he called him, Joto, I think, didn't he, at one point?
Yoto, that's a really weird one. It was certainly a memeable moment that happened with Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, I did laugh at that, yeah. And he said that that's a position that they would have to look at as well. Thrown into that mix, he enlightened us as well that Marco Tilio was injured, but he came with an issue, I think it was his ankle.
They knew that before he signed.
Yeah, they knew that before he signed, but he was letting, obviously, the Celtic supporters know. Obviously, Alistair Johnston's out as well for 6 to 8 weeks. He said he's had the procedure on his ankle, and he also enlightened us about Mikey Johnson too, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now, lots of people running about with their hair on fire, Ryan, saying, "Oh, it's all going belly up, lots of injuries and stuff." I don't think for a minute that the manager does not have any of this in hand and will deal with it appropriately in the coming days, weeks, months, call it what you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's got everything under control. And I think just going back to the point about, there's a point that some people make about, oh, these aren't Brendan Rodgers signings. They're not supposed to be Brendan Rodgers signings. He does. Yes, he'll get the final say of who comes in, but the scouting system is now the be all and end all with regard to bringing people in. Brendan Rodgers is obviously okay with that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be back at the club. He would have agreed to that. there is no way they'll be selling him short in this way. He'll know that he won't have as much power in bringing people in. He's not got his own. He's not got that Lee Congerton, or I think it was Lee Congerton that he brought in to Celtic in one of these finals. Yeah, he doesn't have that anymore. Mark Lawwell's in that position. He's the one that's the head of all that. He's going to find these players alongside his scouting team. So he wouldn't have taken the job if he wasn't okay with this. And I think it's just Celtic doing their due diligence with regard to their scouting. It's worked in the past. It's worked with Kyogo in Asia. It's worked with Hatate. It's worked with Maeda. 2 out of those 3 have now signed on, and they're senior players now in the squad. Looks like a good signing. Iwata looks like a good player. Yes, there's still doubts about Kobayashi, but I still think there's a player in there. So I think Asia should be a place that Celtic continue to scout. And I think if they weren't, people would be moaning about that as well, because,
yeah, because it's served as well in the past.
Celtic have done so well in that market in the past, so I'm glad that they're continuing to do so with that continuity. I always talk about continuity in these briefings, but it's so important that we have that sort of state from one stage to the next. And yeah, I'm happy that these deals are getting done now, and it shows that we have a clear strategy in the transfer window. Not to say that I want us to be scouting in other areas, of course, but if these players are available in South Korea and you want to expand that market, then I'm all for it. I mean, one of South Korea's best players is now close to joining Bayern Munich, so it shows that there are players in this system. He was playing in the Korean League 6-7 years ago, so these players are there. They just need to find them.
Yeah, and I also don't think for a minute that Brendan Rodgers will not be recommending his own players to Mark Lawwell, people that he knows that are available and can come in and hit the ground running. And he did mention a comment yesterday that Celtic will fight for their lives in the Champions League. So I don't think for a minute that this squad is anywhere near complete and ready to contest both domestically and in Europe next season. As I say, there's still plenty of time for Celtic to sign players. I'm not panicking, but I just feel that there's a lot of supporters out there unnecessarily worried because there's been no real quick-fire movement and in terms of players. But I think every manager has to conduct their due diligence and assess everything that they have at their disposal. And I think Brendan's one of the shrewdest out there, and he'll know exactly what's needed, even within the few weeks that he's been here. But you have to get them out on the training park and also have conversations with players, look them in the eye and see who's with you and who's maybe thinking about not so sure. And if that's the case, then they will leave. It's as simple as that. But I'm still confident in the fact that the manager has all these things at hand. Celtic will be working on deals in the background and just maybe lots of things that people aren't aware of, Ryan. Maybe that's the way they want to do business now. Well, nobody really knows what's happening. I think that's the best way, isn't it?
It's what you want. It's what you. Yeah. I mean, yes, you do like to hear about transfers getting down the line. It's good we've got this update today of these 2 players potentially joining the club. But at the same time, you want Celtic to be doing their business without anybody really knowing until the deal is basically all but done. You don't want to be airing out what's happening. If it's a very public sort of development for players. Yeah, I would rather Celtic keep it under wraps and then announce when they need to announce, or when it's close to being announced, then you start hearing about it. Because then you don't get involved in all these transfer sagas that have bitten us in the past. And yeah, I prefer if it's private. It's not. I think we will do a lot more business this summer. There was sources yesterday saying that Celtic are still going to spend big in this transfer window, but you need to have squad players as well. You need to have players that are going to come in and be development players as well. These two guys that are coming in from South Korea, they're both aged 21, 22 years old. Players for the future, but players that could also make a difference just now. And you need to have assets all over the park. Celtic I think they're just covering themselves just to make sure that they've got direct replacements if players were to leave, and to have players coming through that are available to come in and to make a difference.
Does it worry you that Cameron, Carter, Vickers and Johnston could miss the start of the season?
Absolutely, yeah. They are very much the safety blanket of this Celtic team, I would say. They're the safety net. I feel like those are the two players that you just know you can rely on with regard to defending. I'd probably put Starfelt in there as well, and Greg Taylor. It's been a very good defensive back four, but the fact that those two could miss the start of the season is a massive blow, especially Carter Vickers. I think Carter Vickers makes everybody better around them, and you can see the calmness or the more calmness when Carter Vickers is playing with the other players. And I feel like Johnson is getting to that point as well. I mean, that defensive mix-up that Iwata and Ralston had, that just wouldn't happen. Remember against St Mirren, I think there was a mix-up before Curtis Main scored his first goal in that 2-each game.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened if Johnson was there. Johnson spaces out the game so well. But it's one of those ones where it's going to be interesting to see where Celtic go. Will they bring in a replacement right back? Or a centre back as well.
Do you act accordingly then? In terms of the transfer business, do you bring in a centre back or a right back who can do a job for a few months, something like that?
I've got to be honest. I don't think Ralston can be the first choice right back at this moment in time. I think Celtic have got to. I mean, you look at the games that are coming up early doors in the league. You've got Pittodrie and you've got Ibrox, two of the hardest away games on paper, at least. Well, Ibrox is always hard, but Pittodrie has been a wee bit easier the past couple of years, but it's still a difficult away game. I would want a replacement in there, somebody that's going to directly challenge Alistair Johnson for next season. Because I think with Celtic playing in 4 competitions next season, there is room to manoeuvre with regard to playing right backs. If you've got two vying for that first choice spot, then that can only be good for the club. I remember in 2019 and 2020 when it was El Hamed and Frimpong, that duo complemented each other because you had the more experienced one and the more experienced and defensive one in El Hamed, who you could liken to Alistair Johnson. And then there was the younger one coming through in Frimpong, who burst onto the scene quite unexpectedly as well. But if you have that that sort of option at right back to bring in that can really make a difference, such as like a Frimpong, that would be ideal for that position too, I would say.
Where do you stand on Kieran Tierney's return? Is it becoming more prominent now that there's various defenders injured?
See, if I wanted them back, I would want them back permanently, and I know financially that isn't possible. But you want I want to be bringing in players to the team that are our players, unless it really makes sense and Tierney's absolutely desperate to come back and get game time. I'm sure not too many people would complain about Kieran Tierney coming back into the fold, especially in the second coming of Brendan Rodgers' team. Yeah. Could you imagine Tierney and Johnson either side? That would be absolutely tremendous. And they both play that Rodgers way that Rodgers wants. He wants big, robust fullbacks running and putting crosses into the box. I think both players would complement that amazingly. But it's one of those ones. I wonder if he's get better offers down south.
Yeah, but I mean, I only mention that because I still think that Greg Taylor's been outstanding for Celtic. So what do you do with Greg Taylor if that's the case? If Kieran Tierney comes in, because he wouldn't be coming in to warm the bench. Let's say it that way.
No, absolutely not. You'd expect him if Kieran Tierney's fit, and I know that's a big if because he has had his injury doubts over the past 3-4 years. He was starting to have them at Celtic. Celtic were so fortunate to get 25 million for a player that was picking up a lot of injuries in that last season. A lot of people don't talk about that, but he was out injured for a lot of it. He was picking up injuries. I'm sure he was actually having injections to get through games, playing in Brendan Rodgers' final season into Neil Lennon's sort of a caretaker role. But yeah, I would love to see him back at Celtic. I think he will come back to Celtic at some point, but I'm just wondering if maybe a Newcastle or an Aston Villa will come in and give him a loan deal, or they might give money to Arsenal and take him permanently. If he wanted to come back and he made those sacrifices in order to make it happen, then I would be all for it. But I think it's pretty pie in the sky at this moment in time, unless we get some solid development.
He can also play centre back, can't he, Kieran Tierney?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's played there for Scotland. I think he's played right back as well. He's quite a mobile player. What would you say? He's versatile. He's very versatile with regard to where he can play in the back line. He can play centre half as well. He's good players can play in a lot of positions, I would say, and Kieran Tierney is a very, very good player. I'd love to see him back, but I don't think it will happen at this point.
No, I was just throwing it out because obviously Celtic have got a couple of injury worries defensively, and I was just saying if you thought Celtic should act accordingly in the transfer market, ahead of the start of the season, because they have, the first 5 games are pretty crucial, and
They're
you see
massive.
they are going to Pretoria and Ibrox, and a couple of weeks ago I was saying 15 points, you would accept 13 possibly by not getting beat at Ibrox or
Agreed.
leaving Ibrox undefeated. But now when you see the injuries to key members of your personnel and you think to yourself, okay, but I still think there's a lot of time to fix that, or get players in who are oven ready, as I always say, first team ready, and blend them into the side before you start against Ross County. So I've just thrown his name in there, and there's also a lot of, what Twitter's like and social media. It's a buzz with Kieran Tierney talk, so it's always a talker, whether it suits both parties. I wouldn't know, so that one will play out as it does, Ryan, but one wonders if the second coming of Brendan would be followed by the second coming of Tierney. I think a lot of Celtic supporters would, a bit like you. I would prefer him to be back on a permanent basis. I just think come this time next year, if he stayed for a year, it would be tears and snotters time again, wouldn't it? So it's and also you would be developing a player again for another club to get the benefit of a year down the line. So there's a lot to think of. Then there's also a heavy financial outlay too. So we'll see how that goes.
I think it's an important one. It's an important decision for Kieran Tierney to make as well. He's 26.
Yeah.
He's just entering the sort of prime years for a left back or a full back. He needs to weigh up all his options and then decide where is the best place for him. I think not to sort of scout for any other clubs, but a Newcastle or an Aston Villa, he'd be one of their best players in their team. I think
Yes.
he'd be a great signing for either one of those teams. Although I know that both teams are making quite big statement signings this summer, so he'd probably fit their team quite well. But if he wanted to come back, I wouldn't be. I'm not gonna deny Kieran Tierney a place at coming back at Celtic. I'm just wondering what the left back sort of situation will be next season. We've got Greg Taylor, who's really cemented himself as the number one in that position, but Bernabe might suit playing in a more traditional left back role. The only thing I think he's got against him is his height, and Brendan Rodgers prefers taller fullbacks in his team, so that might work against him.
What I want from Bernabe is to be challenging Greg Taylor, really challenging. He's had his kind of settling in period, call it what you like. Yep, there's deficiencies in Bernabe's game. We can see that. Maybe defending is not his strong point, but going forward, he looks a lot better going forward, than he does in defensive role. He's proved that he can whack one in from 20 odd yards as he did against Ross County and Dingwall. So he's got strengths and weaknesses which he needs to work on. And I hope Brendan Rodgers can bring the player out in him that Celtic signed. But also, I just want him to be a really, really strong competitor that if and when Brendan decides to rotate Greg Taylor, then Bernabe comes in and it's pretty seamless. As I say, he's had that settling in period. He knows what's required now. He knows the standard and the bar that's been raised by Greg Taylor to compete for that jersey. And go and do it. Go and show people that you are the player that Celtic shelled out quite a lot of money for, and really be a competitor this year and fight for that jersey. Greg Taylor wins it hands down every day, doesn't he? But your inspiration should be Greg Taylor, because it took him a while to finally cement his place in the Celtic team. But if he can do it, then so can you. And I think Bernabe has to just buckle up and learn quickly. And he can force his way into the team under Brendan Rodgers, because Brendan Rodgers likes to play with, as you say, traditional fullbacks, which probably suits him because he'll want them to get overlap and get forward and cross the ball into the box. So when he's called upon to do duty and service, be ready and impress. and from the get-go, he's had the benefit of a pre-season, which quite a lot of them will feel that. I'm thinking specifically about guys like Haksabanovic as well, players like that. But Bernabe's one that I really do. We have got a cracking left back in Greg Taylor. We should have the most able of deputies in Alexander Bernabe, and I want that to be a real kind of tussle between them. But you have your reservations about Bernabe, don't you, based on last season? But one wonders if the manager coming in can help him become the player that we all think he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got to say, Bernabe was one of the biggest disappointments for me last season, especially with the financial outlay that Celtic put on that one particular player. Celtic would not pay 3.75 million for a project player. He was brought in to start games, and he didn't start a lot of games last season. I think that tells you all you need to know about him at this point in time. The fact that Greg Taylor has been pretty much untouchable at left back is a failing on Bernabe's part, because he should be pushing him. He's been brought in to the team for a big amount of money. Like, as I said before, just a minute ago there, they don't spend that type of money unless they think that you can make an immediate impact in the first team. So something's happened along the way that it's made it that he's not played as many games. I know he's had his problems off the park. He's probably still trying to settle in as well, but this season's the clincher for him in his Celtic career, in my opinion. I think it's make or break for him already. I know that sounds doom and gloom already, considering he's got what is he on, a 5-year deal? I think this is his second year of a 5-year deal. But Brendan Rodgers won't hang about if he isn't doing the business. He will go and sign somebody else.
He's had his honeymoon period. He's had his settling in time. He has to produce next season, Ryan. End of. I agree with you. I think it's a big season for Bernabe, because and also as well, you canvass any Celtic supporter, you just don't see where he's going to play.
There's no confidence.
League Cup games, stuff like that, but you just have to wait and see if it's maybe a new Bernabe that starts the season, or from what, if he gets the chance to slot in at left back. But he's certainly not displacing Greg Taylor at this moment in time.
No, absolutely not. I think if you ask many Celtic supporters what their opinion on Bernabe is they don't really know. They don't really know what he brings to the team. They might be unconvinced. They're still yet to be convinced about what this player does bring. I think that goal against Ross County has bought my tiny bit of time, because he's shown something tangible. But when you watch him, especially at home, I've taken the time out to sort of personally watch what he does on the pitch. Yes, he does motor about the pitch, but his passing is absolutely deplorable. There's like 3-yard passes that go uncompleted, or they go to the opposition. It's I expect more for a player that's just under 4 million. I expect more from him.
I remember there was a great quote from Rangers manager Walter Smith about Scott Nisbet, and I kind of likened it
every
to
pass is a journey.
Every pass is an adventure. I always thought that about Bernabe, that every pass was an adventure with him. At times, but it's a great quote, that, isn't it? Every pass is an adventure. But yeah, and that's the kind of things that I think Bernabe needs to knuckle down on, get those kind of basics right, and we'll move forward and see what the future brings with him. But yeah, I mean, it's we're just kind of learning just now about all the kind of injuries that are there. Tillio, you say, arrived with an injury. Celtic knew all about that. Mikey Johnson is the latest, and I don't know about you, Ryan, but I just can't help feel that that's maybe the end of the road for Mikey Johnson and Celtic. If he's going to miss 3 months of the season, that's a big chunk of time, and by that time Celtic will be up and running. There'll be an established team with an established impact players as well, and Mikey Johnson won't be one of those. I just feel that it's kind of coming to the end, and he was asked a question yesterday, wasn't he, by one of the Irish journalists who was getting excited about Mikey Johnson because of what he did for the Republic of Ireland. And he said, is it your remit, and do you hope to kind of help Mikey Johnson nail down a place? And Brendan's kind of answer was pretty cold, wasn't it? It was, no, really.
It's not my job.
It's not, it's his job. And I kind of, you're connecting dots and joining lines and thinking, do you know what? I think I think the end of the road is nigh for Mikey Johnson.
Seemed as if he was washing his hands of it all. To be honest, with Mikey Johnson, he was like, if he makes a comeback, then so be it. But for me, anyway, from what I gathered from the way he was talking and the expression he was giving off, he was like, I don't really believe in this player. I don't believe he can do it. I don't believe he can come back. And that might sound harsh, but at the same time, he's not a young boy anymore. He's 23, 24 years old now. The amount of appearances he's made for a 23, 24-year-old is not good enough. Look at the players that Celtic have brought in Odin Holm and Marco Tilio, who have both made more senior appearances than Mikey Johnson has. That's it's not all down to Mikey Johnson. Yes, he did get that really bad injury. I think it was at McDermott Park under Neil Lennon when he tried to run it off and it made it worse. That really curtailed his development. But when he's been on the pitch, I think he's failed to impress. He does show wee glimpses. He showed that a glimpse of it when he pulled on the Ireland top against Latvia, and then he scored in the next international break after that. But I just don't think he's Celtic level, unfortunately. He doesn't have the consistency. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't play 10, 15, 20 games on the trot without getting injured, if you can't play 5 games on the trot without picking up an injury or losing form, then unfortunately you're not going to make it. I think we're kicking this can down the road when we all know what the ending of this story is going to be.
Yeah, I just don't think Mikey Johnson will cut it at Celtic. I've said it for a long, long time. It's nothing personal on the boy. I just think Celtic are moving in a different direction. Brendan Rodgers certainly ain't going to hang his hat on a Mikey Johnson comeback. I wish him well for the future. I wish him well in his rehabilitation. Hopefully he gets back to some kind of level of fitness, but I just don't see him having a future at Celtic once that 3-month period is up, and I think he'd probably be best served looking elsewhere and going elsewhere. He showed glimpses at international level that he can play, he can still hack it, but I just don't think he'll be hacking it at Celtic. But it was just interesting. I just thought that Brendan's response to that was quite interesting. And Alan Woods comes in and says, morning, Alan, says, he liked Brendan's response to that question yesterday. It's up to every player to impress him, which goes back to my original point that he's assessing everything and looking at every player that he has at his disposal and weighing up, making, decisions and judgments in his head, and also seeing the lie of the land, seeing how they feel about moving forward with him and trying to make inroads. I mean, you mentioned European football 2 or 3 times yesterday, Ryan, and if he's serious about making dents in European football, then it stands to reason that he will be enhancing that squad. He will be signing players. There'll be, new players coming into that team. So that's why I'm not so worried. Because at the end of the day, if you don't follow through on those proclamations, then it's just empty words, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was question marks whether or not Mikey Johnson is good enough for the squad if he was fully fit.
Yeah.
But we won't even know now because he's out injured for 3 months. He doesn't get a single pre-season game. He doesn't make a single pre-season minute. That's really disappointing, and I think that spells the end for him.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers isn't here to baby him or nurse him back to full fitness. He's got a team to look after.
You're not catching up with this Celtic team after 3 months. I'm sorry.
No, because
you're not.
This was the perfect opportunity for him to stake a claim. Jota's out the door. Maeda, yes, he signed a new contract, but he can be in and out of the side. This was his big chance. It's not his fault that he got injured, but these incidents just keep on happening. He didn't exactly set the heather alight in Portugal as well. Yes, he did play games, but his numbers aren't good for a winger at all. You'd expect him to make more of a difference over there or more of a contribution. And it sounds like I'm being quite harsh on Mikey Johnson, but I just expected more from when we seen his debut. We seen him coming out and we're like, who is this guy? This guy's a live wire that looks like he can really make a difference if he bulks up a wee bit. He still doesn't look like he's bulked up at all. Yeah. He still looks like the same player that he was when he was 17. In fact, he's probably a worse player than when he was at that age. And that's I feel like I'm going in on him a wee bit, and I just think it's the end of the road for him. We've been hearing this every season. We've been hearing, if he comes back, he might be a good player. Nah, I don't think it's going to happen now.
I think he's had his chance and it's came and gone. You said Jota's came and gone. Was that Yota or Yoto? I'm not too sure what one that is.
Well, if we've signed,
Definitely Jota.
if we've sold Yoto, then Jota's still at the club. In which case, we've sold the Saudi club, an Ali Dia version of Jota.
The wrong man. We've sold him the
Yeah.
wrong man.
Yeah, that's
I can imagine that will become a meme with Rodgers, eh?
already has.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it was such a big opportunity for Mikey Johnson. When you seen the pictures of him in pre-season, or I don't know if he actually trained, but he was in the new sort of jersey. You were like, this is his chance. Maybe he can get a wee bit of game time and then show Brendan Rodgers what he can do. After all, it was Brendan Rodgers that gave him his debut.
Yes.
He was touting him and he gave him a 5-year deal, I think, after his debut. But no, I think the comments from Brendan Rodgers, especially considering the fact that he is one of sort of Mikey Johnson's biggest fans in terms of bringing him through the team. Those sort of washing of the hands comments yesterday, I think they spell the end for him.
I thought it spoke volumes, to be fair, personally. But
Brendan will always give you something. That's the thing with
yeah,
his press conferences. There's no you can figure stuff out when he's saying stuff.
yeah, and it's not being disrespectful to Mikey Johnson, because I know Brendan Rodgers is very big on respect to football players. You just sort of see the writing on the wall and you're reading between the lines about stuff like that. So it's a shame. Injuries have curtailed that development as well. But I just feel that whenever he's had a chance, he's failed to shine. So it's that's, in my opinion, I think he'd be best served trying to resurrect his career somewhere else. And I think further down the line, that's probably the inevitable outcome in all of this. Anything else catch your attention, Ryan, with Brendan speaking yesterday, or anything else you want to bring up?
I enjoy listening to Brendan Rodgers in a press conference situation. I think he answers questions very, very well. Very different to the way that Ange Postecoglou would answer questions. There are positives and negatives that go with that, because you don't get as many funny lines from Brendan Rodgers. But I think it is more of a professional look with Brendan Rodgers. He's a more front of house sort of guy. He's the sort of face of the face of the organisation, the face of the business. He's a very smooth operator. He knows exactly what to say. I just loved his comments about daring to dream in Europe, because I feel like that was very well measured. He was saying, yes, it is going to be a challenge pushing forward in Europe, but who's to say that we can't do it? Who's to say that we can't push on and do well in that competition, or in the competition that we find ourselves in, either before Christmas or after Christmas? So yeah, it's good to hear that from him. It shows that the hunger is there. He's talking about dreaming about going forward with the team. He's getting everything spot on in his press conferences so far. I think he's really won over the vast majority of fans, and credit to him, because he could have handled it differently and people would be angry at his return. But I feel like it's a very, very much, from what I can see anyway, a united fan base with Brendan Rodgers.
He's an excellent orator, and I think it's. I said before that I just want him to do the job, Ryan. Be cold, calculated, measured, and I think so far it's very much got the business head on, hasn't he? In terms of Celtic, and I think that's what the supporters want. So yeah, I'm being very impressed as well by his public utterances. I can't wait to see what actual players he brings in. I can't wait to see him working with the squad that he has at his disposal. And I think it's it's a union that's come together at the right time. So soon after the success with Ange, and I maintain he's still the best manager Celtic could have recruited within the financial parameters. And he looks hungry, doesn't he? Even having been there the time before, he used to. I go back to it. He's not here to win the League Cup. Whenever that final will be, he's not here to win the Scottish Cup. Whenever that final will be next season, he's here to win the title, and he's here to make inroads in Europe. Those, first and foremost, are Celtic's. That's the box ticking. If he wins the treble, great, that'll be a bonus, but he won't be concentrating on anything else other than retaining the title and making some impression in Europe and taking Celtic to that famed next level. That's just exactly what he wants to do, and get some respectability back in that European scene. And he said himself, he mentioned it, the fact that Celtic haven't won a knockout tie for over 20 years. That's a statistic that he'll probably look at and think, seriously? And somebody will say, well, you were part of that as well. Didn't happen under your watch the first time. So he'll be determined to rectify that, won't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where some of the hunger will come from. He'll want to break that trend that's been happening in Europe for basically my whole life. It feels like with regard to knockout ties. I'd love us to win one. I can't remember when we beat Barcelona, and in that knockout round. I remember the 2012 one, obviously one of the best nights at Celtic Park ever. But I would just love to see it. It should have happened 2 years ago. It's really annoying. Nothing in football is given to you, but you just feel it should have happened under Bodo Glimt, and Celtic really get turned over that night, really get shell-shocked with regard to the team that we were facing. Well done to them. They deserved their win over the two legs, but this shouldn't have been going on for 20 years. A club like Celtic should be the bogey team to face in Europe, especially in the knockout games. You don't want to come to Celtic Park. It's up to Brendan Rodgers to make Celtic Park on European nights, especially a fortress, because it's a fortress domestically. Teams are frightened to come to Celtic Park on domestic. They don't expect to get anything from Celtic Park. I want the same to happen in Europe. Maybe not to the same level of dominance, but you still want it to be a really difficult place to come for teams in the knockouts. And if you're in the knockouts, it means you've done well. You've done well in the group stages. So those two go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, seen a couple of comments here. Of course, Brendan's here to win everything. I'm making the point that your priorities is always to win the title and to be successful in Europe. If you win the League Cup and the Scottish Cup, that's a bonus. Celtic currently hold all three major domestic trophies, and Brendan will want to retain them if he can. But you set out at the start of the season to win the title. Cups are the bonus along the way, and if you're a successful team in the league, then there's no reason why you can't go all the way in the cup competitions. But next season, I just want to see Celtic, one, retain the title, and two, get to the latter stages of a European competition, whether that be last 16 or last 8 of the Champions League, if they can finish second in their group, or if they drop into the Europa League and get to the latter stages there. I'm talking last 8, semi-final, something like that, to prove that the words that they are they're saying and the public proclamations, they are taking it serious, that they do want to make strides, and that's what I'll accept as progress on both those fronts. Because I mean, Celtic have everything to lose next season because they're the world record.
Because I've won everything.
They've won everything, exactly. So, but does that make it a failure? No, it doesn't make it a failure. I would stress winning the title and being successful in Europe. I think that would be constituted as success for Brendan Rodgers next season. The cups, if they can win them, great. I'm not overly fussed if they don't win the cups, Ryan. I won't smash up the wardrobe that I'm looking at if that doesn't happen. I'd love to see them do it again. It'd be great to continue that total domestic dominance. I'm not saying Celtic are not going to go out and try and continue that total domestic dominance, but retaining the title and getting into obviously the new revamped Champions League and making your presence felt in that arena. I think that's where Brendan Rodgers and Celtic are projecting themselves in the future, assuming he sees out the 3 years, Ryan, which he told us he would.
He said it now. It's in writing. It's in
Stone.
It's in media, video, and audio form as well. So yeah, he's got to stay now. I think he sees the fact that that I pulled up that comment about the after this season, you're kind of stuck in the Champions League unless the coefficient changes and you drop down into Europa League. That's what first place gets you. You're hoping that isn't the case because you want to be playing in the Champions League.
Of course.
But I think it'll be interesting. This season, the winner of the Scottish League effectively gets 60 million. That is what is on offer for this new revamped Champions League model. You get 4 games at home, 4 games away. I think if you finish mid-table, you go into this sort of playoff to get into the next round. You want to be in about that. You want Celtic to be in and about that, playing like-minded teams for that. I'm interested to see how this format works. Not next season, but the season after. Celtic should be in about that. This is a chance for Celtic to catch up with some of the bigger teams with this. If they're in every season, then they'll be able to buy these better players, and I think that's maybe what's happening now.
That's what the manager wants. Big Red, yes, I want to win everything too. I do want to win everything. Yep. But if you're going to prioritise and you're going to go hell for leather at 2 competitions, then obviously you're going to do it for the league campaign and the European campaign. Cup competitions, as I say, anything can happen. It's instant knockout. And Alan Wood says, me too. Yep, me too, Alan. I want to win everything. I want them to retain the treble, but I won't be overly upset if they don't retain the League Cup or the Scottish Cup. I just want them to win the title, and I want them to make a fist of it in Europe and be the team that we all want to see on that front. 46 minutes, Ryan. Amazing. When you're talking about the leather belts. Time flies.
Time flies when you're having a lot of fun talking about Celtic. It's certainly a good habit to get into, talking about Celtic. It sets you up for the rest of your day. And I always enjoy coming on and speaking about the latest developments that are going on with regard to Celtic. So yeah, it's been another good conversation this morning. Really enjoyed it.
I can't be talking about the old, what as I always say, Ryan, the leather belts, the fuzzy felts, the Marjorie Proops, Permanent 1 from 3, the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never-boring Glasgow Celtic.
Rolls off the tongue.
Just it's exactly, we're everything to all men and women on here, but sorry we've not flicked up the comments. We were just engaged in the chat and talking away, but yeah, Kirsty O'Connor, you're like me. We could do this all day. We most certainly could. Myself and Ryan are going to now go and write about said rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring Glasgow Celtic, and Alan Woods even wants to win the 10 at 6s. Brilliant, Alan.
I understand that reference.
Aye, yeah, there you go, eh? I was going to say, and even the boat race, you want Celtic to win the boat race, don't you, in the Grand National? Everything, every competition, yeah, indeed. That was a great commentator. Kenneth Wollstonholme, he of they think it's all over, it is now. Bobby Charlton once scored for Manchester United, and he said it was a goal good enough to win the League Cup, the League Championship, the Grand National, and the boat race. Brilliant piece of commentary. Wonderful man was Kenneth Wollstonholme. Sadly no longer with us, but yeah, all good. But yes, guys, have a wonderful weekend. We await to see if Yang and Kwon sign up at Celtic, but the signs are looking good. They seem to be in the pipeline and coming to Celtic, and we welcome them with open arms. Pete McGee, you guys are dreamers. Well. You guys are dreamers, Tony and Ryan. Hope it doesn't turn out to be a nightmare next season. You're allowed to dream, Pete. There you
go. Celtic have got a friendly tomorrow as well. It's another one against Portimonense. It's a bit of a double header. Played them on Wednesday, but we'll play them on Saturday as well. So another chance for Brendan Rodgers to gauge his squad and sort of evaluate them ahead of next season. I think it'll be closed doors again. I think that's due to the fact that I don't think there's good recording facilities there as well, or the diameters and that. I'm not going to get into measurements, but it's just not as good to record on that in that particular pitch. But I think the first time we'll see them is that Yokohama game on the 19th. So 5 days to go until Celtic are properly back.
5 sleeps, is that, Ryan? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's like Christmas. It's been too long.
Dennis Jameson, cheers, boys. Thanks again. Good show. Appreciate that, Dennis. Thank you very, very much. Jerry Oro, morning, Jerry. How you doing? Good show again. Hopefully some signs soon. Yep, that's what we all hope for. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. If you're out and about, whatever you're doing, take it easy, and we shall see you on Monday. But look out for, I think, is it Sunday, Ryan?
Saturday and Sunday. We've got videos coming out Saturday and Sunday on the YouTube channel. On Saturday, we've got yours and Aidan's squad depth video. And then Sunday, we've got the extravaganza, the trip for Tony's favourite moments, the Celtic moments that made me Tony Haggerty. So we've got them to look forward to. They're scheduled, so you'll see exactly when they come onto the YouTube channel, and when they are on the channel at 6 o'clock. I think 6 o'clock in the morning for both videos. You'll be able to watch them in live at the premiere.
That's the memories one and the moments one's a bit of an extravaganza. That's an hour and 45, something like that, Ryan, is it?
Hour and 45.
And
happy I didn't need to edit too much as well with regard to that, but it was a really nice sit down listening to your stories about Celtic.
And you might see a grown man cry on that video at some point during it. Spoiler alert, but there you go. It is what it is.
Spoiler alert, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
But yeah, indeed, you shall. I'll let you watch it and be the judge of that, guys, and you can let me know your thoughts on it. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Ryan. You had to endure it, but there you go. But yeah, look out for those videos, guys, over the weekend. Have a brilliant time. Take care, and we shall see you all on Monday. Ryan, thank you for your contribution. Stellar and excellent, as always. Take it easy, eh?
Cheers, guys.